And you guys let me know when you see my screen up. You should be seeing the sample data that was sent to me.
Yep.
Okay, so this is what we have. We have the name of the person, and then we have the name of the ancestor. There's a date that they came into, where they came from in Norway, where they went to in the US, and then there's another setup then from
Joel.
for Joel and where they came in and how many. So in this case, Alexis had 3 ancestors that they have tracked back, where they were in Norway, where they went to in the US, and so on. Now I formatted this a little bit differently in a Google Sheet, and there's a couple different ways that I've done it, and I'll show you what that looks like here in MapLine. But what I took was I kind of put that data into a format that will give us a view of who they are, where they came from. So I entered a country column, and then if we had it, I entered state, and then county, commune, parish, farm, town, surname, and then the name of the person at the header of each contact. And then I added in the data for who the ancestor was. If we had it, not all of them did. If we had it, what year they emigrated to the US. And then again, if we had it, where they entered through. So in this case, we have one that we had entered through Canada. And then we have all the years, most of the years. There's just a handful that we don't have for those. So I took that data and just copy and paste it into MapLine, and I put it onto this map. So with this map, I started with two different ways to visualize this. One is, where did the families come from in Norway? So in Norway, we have these families, and I've color coded these pins by the name of the person. So Susan K, Joel M, Rick N, and Alexis S. So here I have these. So Alexis S's Norway contacts came all from these 3 green pins. And then I took that data that we've uploaded, and this is what it looks like within MapLine. We have the country column, everything that was copied in, and everything put into it. So within that, then I assigned a label based on the data from the data set or the information, what I wanted to see about that person when I hover over that pin. So I'll hover over in it, I can see which commune they're from, which parish they're in, farm town they came from, the surname, and then the name of the contact or the person that submitted it, and then who the ancestor was. In this case, we have, most of them had the husband and their wife's name attached with that. And then if we have it, we enter the year they emigrated to. So in this case, this is again one of Alexis's green pins. It's she came from Bygland and Offstad. I'm not going to try and pronounce all of those because I'm going to butcher it, and I don't want to offend anyone that can pronounce these. And then who the ancestor was, and then the year was 1888 that they left Norway and went into the US. So I have this as first view is Norway, and I did enter Norway counties. So we can kind of look at, they came in from Hordaland and so on, and where those towns and cities came from. And then the other piece of that was, if we take that, the other side of the pond, and I have them where they landed or where they ended up in the US. So those same people, we have the Byglands again for Alexis. They left in 1888 and they came in through Canada and settled up in Minnesota. And we have that up there in those states. And then I had US state territories for that very purpose. And then you can look at where they're at. Now this one puts them in Minnesota. This one's up in Montana. Again, Alexis's family.
North Dakota.
North Dakota. Yeah.
Oh, North Dakota. I'm sorry. What am I thinking? Yeah, that's I'm way off here. Montana.
That's
North
okay.
Dakota.
My mom is listening to you.
Oh,
Thank you. That's a good sign. So we know that they emigrated in 1887 for North Dakota, and then very close nearby in 1888. So just a year apart for those two. And again, we can see all that information for that quickly and easily visible for those contacts. And then we can look at an individual group. So if we just want to look at Alexis, we can segment by them. She also, Alexis also had people settle in Baltimore on the US side. So she had three ancestors that she tracked from Norway into the US, mostly north, and then that one came one into Baltimore area. So you're able to see that, and that is Gerhard Samuelson Steen and his wife Nee Madsen. And you're able to see where they ended up in that country. Perfect. So I've got those initially. Again, initially I started with 2 separate versions. one for each country so that we could do it either way. I just want to show you that flexibility. And then the other thing I did was I actually took them and combined them into our ancestry and combined them with the same detail. And then we pull in those. Alexis then has 6 pins, the 3 that were in Norway and then the 3 that are down in the group. And then I color coded. Part of the segmentation is I also segmented them by surname. So Alexis has 6. She has an Edwardson, Heglin, Sharpneys, and a Steen. So all of those families came from Alexis's line. And that's why you'll see multiple different colors there. So her different colors there are in the North Dakota. And then because we didn't have as much US data on this side, we didn't have it, it's just in the Minnesota group. So we can see a bunch of that information. Now, part of the beautiful part about MapLine is if something happens and we have partial data, you can always come in and whoever the administrator will be can get that update and we can edit and update data as we get more information from them. We may not have everything. We can always come in and update it and down the road, and then that will improve the locations and so on. And with our current mapping solution, we actually have a connector. So if you guys were to run this on a Google Sheet that everyone could access, you would be able to put that into a Google Sheet and whoever the administrators could just come in and update your data from that Google Sheet quickly and easily. And then you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of different access. And this can be shared, embedded on your website or shared via a link so people can interact with it and see it. And then again, linking to your Google Sheet, you'll be able to keep it updated once a month, once a quarter, however frequently you want. And you can build this out any way you want to.
Jared, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you display counties in the states?
In the US states?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's just a matter of selecting from a legend option or something?
It's just a territory. We have territories all over the world. So we can come in and put in US counties all over the states.
Okay.
And instead of US states, then we'll drive it down to counties, and then here's the county levels.
Yeah, because that's a good cross check for us to make sure we've got our information correct.
Right, that's nice.
Yep. And we can stack this any way we want. We can have layers of US states and then county layers. These layers can be turned on and off for different reviews of different information.
And similarly, do you have parish level legend options within the counties in Norway?
I think we have the counties, but not the parish level.
Okay.
So for Norway right now, we just have municipalities and counties.
Oh, okay. So you do have municipalities, so you could turn that
Yep.
for Norway.
Correct. And here's the individual municipalities. If we turn off the counties, then we have Osterslide, Bergen, Orsta, and we can pull all that information in there.
Okay.
But those are modern day municipalities, not historical.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know that we have a source that we could pull historical shape files out of, since they didn't have computers with shape files in the 1880s. I don't know that those exist. But if there is a shape file out there that we can find, it is something that if we can find a licensable or licensed shape file or open source shape file for historical, we could add that as a custom layer for your account. And then you could pull in those different territory layers. Again, I don't know if those exist that I would have access to.
So why don't you tell us the differences between what we have right now, which is the free version, and what extra we get if we go to the next level.
Sure. The free version of MapLine is limited to 1 map, 2 data sets, and those data sets are limited to a location limit of 250 pins. So in this, to kind of correlate that to my example here, if we did it as separate countries where they came from and where they went to, that would be your two allowable data sets, up to 250 entries for each. If you did it as one, that would take up double that, because you would have, and again, in Alexis's case, she has 3 ancestors, but 3 pins in Norway, 3 pins in the US, that would go through the 250 pins. The other territories that you would have would be the territory repository of states, counties, parishes, municipalities. Those are part of that paid tier. Without those, then you would be coming in here and creating your own custom layers. We do have some US states on our default background tile, but without the paid level, it would be a matter of you guys coming in and drawing and creating your own territory layers for those, which could be incredibly time consuming and incredibly manual. It would give you the flexibility to come in and start with something like a territory boundary that you could come in and create. And we'll add territories here, in which case you could come in and create your own historical municipality boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and add those in. If you guys have that information, you could come in and kind of base it off of an existing hand-drawn map. You could essentially recreate those boundaries, name them anything you want, edit the data, name them by the municipality. Again, that's an entirely manual, painstaking process, but you do have that option on the free plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alan,
Mhm.
with regard to your question about the old county boundaries, there's that website, what is it? Olaf, RHYS, Norway parishes dot something, which doesn't always work. Have you looked at that?
I haven't seen that one.
Hi, this is Donna. I just checked because I deal a lot with Sweden and there are all kinds of maps of the old parishes in Sweden. And I found that for Norway, Family Search has old maps, and so does the National Archives of Norway.
Do they have just maps with territories on them, or do they have shape files that you can export those territories and add them as layers? Did you notice that?
I don't know, but I think the latter is a yes, but it says Family Search offers an interactive web page, norwayparishes.com, allowing users to search So it would be a matter of whether they would permit you to grab that, I guess. And then the National Archives also.
What is
I
the
think it's worth
extension
exploring.
on a shapefile so that Donna could tell you? Is there a special extension for shapefiles?
Typically they'll be as like a .shp format or a .kml format.
Okay. Donna, can you tell?
Yeah, I'll check.
Okay.
SHP or .kml. Okay.
Yeah. And then if you find that, absolutely send me the link for those, and I'll check with our team. They have to go through licensing and see if there's things that we can use and incorporate. But then you can put all that in there.
Right, of course. Okay, great.
So that's the free limits. Then again, you wouldn't have the preset territories, but you could draw your own, limited to 1 map and 1 and 2 data sets up to 250 rows. The paid plan, our paid license plan, has up to 100 different maps. So you could essentially, if you wanted to, have 1 main map, and then you could create individual family maps that we could create using those multiple data sets, 100 different data sets. So if you have 100 members, each member could have their own map with their own data set view attached, so they could look at their individual family record, and then you could go from there and then just update those through that Google Sheet.
Well, we could actually do it by state, like how many members had ancestors who settled in Illinois or something like that. Sort of to,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you have that, if you're on that paid level plan, you could actually take this US counties layer, style them based on the heat map value of which counties had the most members. So if I do ancestry, the combined one, then we can look at counted pins. We could actually turn this into a heat map of where most of our members' ancestors actually came from. And our system will take that same county boundary, calculate the number of pins in each side. Ours are going to be kind of ones, right? For the most part in their sample, but you'll be able to heat map and see a density of where do we have those members and most of our membership ancestry coming from in the US.
Well, with
or do it to Norway. Where do they all come from in Norway as one heat map layer, and then another one is where do we have more of them settle in the US? And if you do get into Canada, we have territories for Canadian territories and provinces as well.
Okay. Yeah, and there isn't a huge number of us. I think,
Right.
Joel, you said your distribution list, you have about 100. So maybe we could do a heat map by state, you know, because that would be more likely to generate enough numbers to make a difference.
Yep. Yep. And we could do that. We could easily do that by US state. Yep. Any of our territory folders you can apply. And here you see those. We have a couple of people because of our ancestry coming from there. We have a couple of them there. The rest of them are all ones, and you'll see those in green based on the counties that they're coming from. So yeah, the state, you'd have to zoom in really close to see the county layer, but you can still see where those are. And those are independent of the data set. So we can hide the data set and just see that visibility.
So as you extract the data, does it have to come from the Google Sheets or an Excel spreadsheet, or how does that work?
We typically want to see it in a data format like Excel or Google Sheet. The benefit of the Google Sheet is if you're on that paid plan, we actually have a Google Sheet connector that you can come and import that from directly from there. So for example, if I wanted to come down here and say, hey, I need to update my Google Sheet, it's been a couple of months, members have been sending data into the Google Sheet, I can come in here and replace data using my connector, and it simplifies the whole thing. And I would name it, of course. And then you could come in here and it would actually update, replace that data set and just update the information that they've added to it from last month. And you could have up to 30,000 ancestors recorded and tracked on a single data set.
So Jared, you created a Google Sheet based on the tabular information that I gave you in Word. What does our Google Sheet look like?
Oh, it looks just like this.
Oh.
There's our Google Sheet. So I have created, based on your data, which country they came from, which state they settled in, county, commune for Norway, and then those are blank for the US, which parish they're in, and you had some parish names from, I don't know how you got parish names from the US, but they're there. And then which cities and towns, added your surname. And then from your data, I just took and added the name of each person that had that ancestor's name, if it was there, the date. If they had a spouse name, I added whatever was in that spouse and wife, or ancestor and spouse, things like that. And that's it.
So it doesn't look different then. That's what I was wondering. What does it visually look like?
Oh yeah, visually all I had to do was combine this information into a spreadsheet format. So instead of doing in Norway, this would be the country column. We would add the name of the person to a data column to it, and that was all it took.
All right, thank you.
So just so you guys give a context, I took a look at this data after I got it. I took a look at that, and being busy at work, I actually set all this up while I was waiting for my son to finish his driving test. It took me about 15 minutes to format our small sample into a spreadsheet and built the map in 15 minutes right before our call so that I had something to show. This is very quick, very intuitive. And our training with whoever's going to be the administrator of this map or in this data, our training is very, very simple. And I'll walk you through that and be available for questions down the road. If you ever do get stuck, give me a call and we'll walk you through that. We'll be available to help with that anytime you need. I'd even help you format the data set if you have that list of membership. I don't know how your data is formatted today, but we can put something together to get this Google Sheet, and then it's just a matter of updating the data and then importing it into Mapline.
I think I would have been a little too stressed out if my 15-year-old kid was going for a driver's license test.
Well, thankfully it was not with me. It was the driving instructor. He was doing one of his last. You have to drive with the instructor for 3 lessons before you go take the state test. So I got to sit in the parking lot waiting for him to come back from his 2-hour road trip with the instructor. So it wasn't too stressful for me. I think the instructor was a little shaky when I saw him get out of the car though. So we'll see how it goes.
How much is the paid version?
For the Mapline single user access, it's $1,800 for a year. It's a SaaS subscription, so it'll be an annual license that will renew year over year. Get into it for the first year. You can always cancel before the renewal for the second year if it's not getting enough interest from the group, and go from there. And then this, again, this can be shared or embedded. If I take this embed code, you guys could embed this on a team SharePoint site or on your group website, depending on how much confidentiality you want to have with that. And then you can put that in there. If we take a quick version of it, I'll show you what that shared link would look like for everyone that's going to be interacting with the map. Let this load up here real quick. So this is what they would have. They would have the ability to turn layers on and off, so they could see exactly what layers you have available for them to look at. They can turn everything on and off. They can click on the pins, hover over your labels, see the details for those families as well. And hopefully, the more data you get from your group, the more this will help them identify other family members from that group as well. So they can pull all that in there. If, for example, I wanted to search Ole Anderson Melby, you can actually search through the data set and it will let you select that data and it'll take them right to that data if they're searching for a family name or whatever village or town they came from. So if they're looking for a Melby surname or the farm, you can search any of those and it'll let you select those different groups and different values and where they ended up from.
Are you showing us that? Because we're not seeing it.
Oh, did I stop sharing my screen?
We just see a screen, static screen.
Oh, it must have paused on your end. It still looks like it is. Let me restart the share. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I have the right screen up. Let me restart that. Let me know if you see that again.
Okay, we're in Norway.
Yep, perfect. Okay. So yeah, for example, if I was to search Ole Anderson, you could type in a search on the search bar, and if it's in your data, it'll give you that option to go to it. And you can click on the pin and see the details. All the information for that information is there, or hover over it and we can have the label applied to it. Or if you can search a particular city. So let's say, for example, I wanted to search Baltimore. If I could type, it would help. Baltimore, we can go to Baltimore City and it'll pull up that information. I don't have the US pin applied, but they can easily come in and apply that US pin and then see that detail for it. And because of the center point, it'll be over here off to the right, but we can fix that location as well.
Could you get right down to a street address?
If you have an address, you could pin it by address, but you could zoom into the city level. Again, we're just using city at this point. It's just Baltimore, but you could click into it and get down to individual locations, see what's around there. Again, these are current maps. Back to the earlier point about the Norway counties. It's not a historical map. These are current maps. You might city centers and city boundaries and territories and counties, even in the U.S., were probably a lot different in the 1800s than they are today.
Yeah. I just wondered if what I was thinking, if I know where the farm is, regardless of the municipality, if I could plant a pin on that farm, let it decide where that belongs today.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have an address, you could pin that in. I could totally come in here and search. I can search an address. It'll go find that address. That's the wrong address. I was actually searching for my house. This is where I live. You could actually pull in. If you wanted to, then you could right click, copy the coordinates, and then that, instead of an address location on your Google sheet, we would add a coordinates column. You could again use the address, or I could come in here and just pin a coordinates and use the coordinates to map out where that is on top of that. So if I did something like that, then I could come in here and go to my Ancestry Combined. I need to update my data set from my connector. This will take a second. Sorry, guys. Genealogy connector. And my sheet 2 has my location and import. And it shows that here that I'm adding the coordinates column. I'll go ahead and replace that column. And then it's going to update my combined data set here. Now I'll have one that's a blank value once it's done. So then the other piece of this that I would go to then is my location. I can update this to say I have coordinates for latitude, longitude in this coordinates column. Leave it blank if you don't have it, otherwise it'll use that to locate coordinates. And then you can come in and pin those locations directly. Let me refresh my map here while it's searching.
So basically, if we don't have an express lat long coordinates, it will pick the center point of whatever political jurisdiction label we gave it.
Correct. City center or county. Yep. And then you can pull this in as well.
How about if we all pitched in and gave Joel $1,800 and he got a subscription, could he plant everybody in the group on here, Norway and America, just hypothetically, and then all the rest of us have a free account and we could see the whole works?
He would just have that link. So he would just send you that link. And then, yeah, you could all open up that link and see that map.
We'd all have viewership.
Yep. You would all have an open link to view that ancestry history. Yeah.
Cool.
All you'd have to do is make sure you keep updating or sending him your updated data as you find more ancestors. Add them to some sort of data that someone, whether it's Joel or someone else, is the owner of or the administrator of, and then they could just add and update this sheet quickly and easily. That's why I suggested Google Sheet for some of these, because it's easily updatable through Mapline. It's a quick, Joel, if you do that once a month or once every 3 months, go in and just replace it with the current Google Sheet. Anything you guys have added to that shared Google Sheet that you can give access out to your group would be able to populate on this map.
That's great.
Can you do like everybody that left in a certain year? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That immigrated like 1874 or something like that.
Yeah, let's look at your immigrated. Here's the options that we have. Here's the 1874 group. We can pull that in and just highlight who left in 1874. Let me make sure I don't have my other data sets on, but in 1874, we had Nils Christian Nilsson from Rick N.
And that was Rick you were just talking to.
Oh, Rick, that was ironic.
Well, that's
yes,
why
Rick.
I picked the year.
Yep. Nels Christian left in 1874, and he settled over here in the middle of Iowa. And we can pull that back in. So you'd be able to go on that shared link if, again, Joel's going to be the admin. He would create that on that link. You would just go and filter down who left in 1874, and it would show not only your group but all the other ancestors who left that same year.
Rick,
and then you would have that
left the
visibility.
middle of Iowa?
Well, it's actually the western border.
Western half of Iowa over here.
Okay, yep. Iowa. You left Iowa? What's wrong with you?
Come on, you guys. Iowa's where all my people are going to be.
Oh, that's where mine.
That's where mine are too.
And
so.
that county,
mine are
that
in
down there is near
Mitchell County, a lot of them Mitchell County and a lot in Clay County. But
Clay County, that's my county.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Most of mine are
Sure.
Danish if they're in Clay County. And the Norwegians are in Mitchell. What?
Too. Mine are Danish too in Clay County. Are you the person I talked about this before and I was trying to get in touch with you?
Probably was. I've just been so busy. Can I ask a couple questions here?
Sure.
To clarify, because I know I've just been unavailable, but so this would be $1,800 for the group, and then we could divide it up, and we could all have there'd be one admin person, and then we could divide up this cost. Is that what I understood?
I was just throwing that out there as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the example that was brought up, if you guys pooled your resources and everyone contributed enough to cover the $1,800 cost, one of you would be the account admin, where you would have a Mapline login license. You would log in and just update the shared data that people are going to share with you and put it on that map. And then that shared map could be shared. That link could be sent to everyone in the group, that you would then have access to that shared link for all the content and turn layers on and off and look at your individual family records or filter down to individual years, again, whatever you wanted to look at. So you two would be able to share together. If your families are both in a certain Clay County in Iowa, both of your data would be visible to those people, as long as you're willing to send your data to one source to centralize it for that single user.
Jared, is it possible through Mapline to look at summary statistics? Like, say we got a decent data set. Well, maybe 50 people gave us information on Norwegian and US locations. Could there be like a summary of settlements counts per year, like 1874, 1875, like maybe we get 1881 is the big year for our lodge, you know, the most immigrants showing up per year, or summary like the most states where lodge immigrant ancestors settled were Iowa and Minnesota, or something like that. Is that possible?
It is possible on some of our GOBI solutions, more
Okay.
so than we're talking about. Our initial conversation was how do we keep price low enough so the group would be willing to pitch in and afford it at 1,800. We could do a similar thing. Let me pull up a quick Mapline example here. We do have other options, other tiers that would allow that to do. That would start somewhere around the 5,000 per year mark. I don't know if everyone wants to pitch in for that, but that brings in summary analytics and dashboards, something like that. In fact, let's just do a new dashboard for your genealogy project. Let's look at it. Don't be offended. I misspelled Norway. My wife is Canadian. I misspell Canada every single time, and she calls me on it every single time. So we could pull in a dashboard that would pull in anything you wanted to pull. So let's look at a quick chart. And let's look at vertical bar. We'll look at this by data set combined. This would give you that visual analytics right next to a copy of your map that would pull in. Let's look at it by state. Let's look at it by year. And then we could look at it by surname. And we're going to pull something like that. So in this case, I have a bunch that don't have values. This is the year they came in, but Illinois, and then we would have by year they came in. Again, if you have that year, we could pull that in. So maybe we want to take it by year and then by state instead, and we can flip that around. So in 1872, we had one person move to Minnesota, one person went to Iowa, and 1880, 1887, and 1888, and we can look at them by state. Again, if you don't have values, it's blank. We can filter those out to hide blank values, but you can pull all this information. And then we had Illinois and Minnesota, but we just don't know which year they were from.
Okay, thank you.
So we could do that on the map visual. We did this from our maps here. You would have that option to come in and pull in the map next to the chart. And then that would be a whole different animal with that map, for example. On that tier, you could actually collect to the US states and add data to it. So how many ancestors do we have coming from that in our genealogy data set? And it would give you a lot more statistics, analytics, visual. We would get a count of how many were in there. You could set certain filters, things like that.
Okay.
And then you would be able to collect that data directly to your county layers or your state layers.
Yeah.
In this case, and you would look at how many ancestors in our combined data set are all in Iowa or Illinois or North Dakota, Minnesota, and so on.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I think
you could get into that. I'd start with probably the mapping to make sure the group is invested. If they love it and they're into it enough that they want to upgrade, we can always expand to this statistics analytics package later. That's what Mapline does. We're the only geo-powered analytics solution that's out there. Everything brings in geography that we can look at, distance analysis, how far, if you want to get into distance analysis, how many miles away is one city name, or the family name matches family name, how many miles away are they from where they settled? We can bring in all sorts of distance analysis, and then the visualization statistics on a chart, metric dashboard, things like that. As we get a larger data set, then there's a lot more statistics you could get into with those.
Yeah, and I would guess for our purpose, initially, we don't have that many people yet expressing enough interest to do the 5K version.
Right.
But we could, in an interim level, do some internal counting, you know, with our data set being small enough. We can go, okay, we've got 11 from Iowa, you know, we've got 4 from Illinois. We could do the hard
Yeah.
counts ourselves.
And I can set something up that you can, whoever the admin is, and Joel, make sure you don't tell them you don't want to do that if you don't want to do it. But whoever the admin's going to be, you could add a static column instead of doing it dynamically. You could come in here and say count of ancestors, and you could come in and manually change that. So for example, if I was to go to Minnesota, click on it, this is the dynamic style column. But if I go to interior data, hey, there's 3 there. I could right click that state of Minnesota, edit the data for that, and say we have 3. And then you could manually add those counts to the territories and still see that when you click on Minnesota. And that would translate over to our US, our total map. Let me refresh this, make sure I get that all loaded. And then they would come in and be able to click on that state and say, oh, Minnesota has 3 people, because they could manually add that column to it. So if you're doing the hard counts, let's add it to the list, and then we can add that manually. And you can still do that on the 1800 mapping. You just don't have the dynamic capability with the BI GeoBS
Right.
solution.
Okay.
And you won't have the dashboard and the charts, but you can at least get the data in there
Yeah,
and then pull that in there.
that's our first hurdle.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So-
can I ask a question here? If I'm not interrupting?
Yeah, fire away. I have 4 kids. I don't finish a sentence at home. I have no
Okay.
problem with
All right.
interrupting.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm extremely interested in this, but I'm sort of not prepared, but I have more time now. And so I would like to share this, if we're recording it, with my Uncle Jerry, who's, you know, I don't know, his wife just died and he's getting old, but he knows he's got most of the information. He's in Ames, Iowa right now, with 5 kids, and I think he could get us a lot of stuff to add in for some of those counties. And and I also would like to kind of include my oldest son, who right now has some extra time. He had an accident, and he could understand all of this technical stuff you're talking about here, which is,
Sure.
you know, is challenging for me personally. I mean, I'm just a little bit old to be dealing with all this technology, but I think we could really add in, and, you know, I'd like to be a part of the project. So if it's okay for me to share with those 2, kind of bring them in, you know, to the group, then we could add some data, right? Because we need to get data. We need to populate this thing,
Yep.
right?
I have no problem with you sharing this recording if they're able to get it from, I think Joel is the owner of it on the Zoom meeting, but if he's willing to send you a link, by
Okay.
all means, share it out. Joel, feel free to share my email and my phone number with anyone that you would like to call and ask questions. If they have any questions moving forward, I'm happy to make myself available for any of those questions as well. I don't typically work Saturdays, but this was something that your group felt strongly enough about, and I was willing to. Family history is an important thing for my family as well. I don't have the Norwegian connection yet that I've found. Although if I go into what's that program called, Family Search, being based here in Utah, Family Search is a big deal for people around here, and I know we're in it. My wife and I are actually having people over tonight to look at family history for our family, and trying to track our lines back as far as we can. So this is something near and dear to my heart. So happy to make myself available for your group if you guys have questions. I'd love to help you track it down.
Well, if
Great.
you find out that you go back to Kvinherad, Norway, you might be related to me with that last name.
I know my family. If you track it far enough, you can get into and everyone's connected to a real family at some point, right? So if you go back far enough, and that's when it gets really fun, you can go into like Family Search and start looking at all that, or ancestry.com. I think they're all working together now to put family histories together and so on. But so many fun things that you can get into. I know that we're connected in Norway at some point. It's just a matter of how far back and what name it goes into. So
It may have been in England where the Vikings were, you know, in control for several hundred years.
yep, probably. I know we have English, Irish, and things like that as well.
All right, so it could be Ireland.
Now you guys got me logging into my family search to look it up because I know we're talking about it with our neighbors tonight too. So
Well, the
gonna go-
Vikings established Dublin, I think.
I
Yeah,
have
the Irish are a bunch of shipwrecked Vikings.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
Joel, you want to join the lodge? I mean, Jared, you want to join?
May I just ask a simple question?
Sure.
I'm in with that technology challenged group.
Good.
In order to get the data
Yeah.
of my family, you've got one person that I typed out. What would I have to do to compile it and get it to someone? Because I have no idea. I
all
don't
you
have
would-
spreadsheets. I don't have Google, whatever it is.
Oh, okay.
I
Do
have
you use
notebooks.
Word?
Do I use
Do you
Word?
use Word
I
or something like
do.
it?
I word process is what I do, and I have notebooks. And I do my taxes with a ballpoint pen and a legal pad. Perspective.
You just need to send whatever columns we establish. You just send us the values for those columns, and then we'd put it into the program.
All right, Jill, you just said something. Let's try it again. Values for the columns. What do you mean? You mean you're going to send me a chart and then I type it out?
Yeah, we'll send you something I mean, basically, it's just what you know about your ancestors, which county, which commune, which farm they came from, and
Okay.
that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
Susan,
It would
do
be a
you
blank
use
table.
Excel at all on the computer?
No, I
No
haven't.
Excel. Okay.
No, I retired 20 years ago, and we
Well, it
were.
could be a
You're a
blank
smart
table,
woman.
Susan.
I'm sorry.
It could be a blank table.
Yeah.
And you fill out the words in the table according to the column headings.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Probably with a pen, more than on the computer.
That's okay. Just send a handwritten copy, and we'll take care of it.
Very sweet. But I that is a question of how do you get them over? That was for some.
As long as you can get to someone that can get it into enter into Mapline, we can get it in there and be typed. It'll have to be typed in by somebody at some point. But yeah, as long as someone in the group is willing to support with that.
No, I'd be willing to type it into a chart if I could just write it in.
Okay.
That's fine.
I have a
Okay, I'm
question just
sorry that
about-
was such a simple question, but many of
No,
the
that's a
words
great
you were
question.
using are not my words.
Gotcha.
Well, Jared, this has been really really interesting. Really, it's a really powerful program. So we need to give some thought to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't be intimidated by technology with that point. I'll be here to help along the way as well if you need anything. So just grab me and we'll jump in and get things going. And again, I'll be happy to help whoever needs it.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Great.
Hi, this is Donna, and I could not find the shape files quickly, so that's something I'll have to research to see if those are available.
Okay. And
Okay,
I'll
and
look as well. I don't know. I'll check some of those websites that you mentioned as well, but I'll look at it and some of my searchings as well.
One of family search, so you're right out there in the right place.
Yep. I've never looked at shape files or territories for them before, but I'm pulling in. I mean, all of my family is, we're all from Eastern US. I'm in it right now, and everything's from Connecticut, Long Island, and it goes back to England and Gloucestershire and all over the UK. So I am sure at some point we are connected somehow.
Donna, were you thinking about the maps that Family Search has on their wiki?
Well, it's more like for those kinds of maps, which they have the maps of all the parishes, do they have shape files which they will share with us
Yeah,
that we can
so
use?
Jared, it's Family Search Wiki. And that opens up like a homepage of a global map. And
Okay.
you click on the continent and it opens up a drop-down menu by country. And so we mostly click on Norway, and it drops down another level by county.
Okay.
And so that's what I think we're talking about.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll take a look at that.
Okay,
Family Search Wiki, you said?
yeah. And you can surprise your dinner guests.
I will, most likely. I'll dig into that a little bit. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so give it some thought. There's oh yeah, I see it right here. List of localities.
Yeah.
Okay, I will have to dig through this. I've never looked through this part of Family Search before.
Have any of you worked in the Library of Congress on searching
I have.
Yeah.
and found much of anything?
Yeah.
Well, they have,
Quite a bit.
Yeah, because
they have
we're
a huge
local.
number.
We're local here. I've got friends who work there. So, just driving into DC.
They do have a great genealogy room. I
Uh-huh.
haven't worked in it for a long time, but one of my first things I ever did was go to a book on the shelf of the genealogy room and find my Danes who left Denmark in 1871. So
Yeah.
in Germans to America, in the Germans to America series books, but a lot of those books now have been scanned. But there are knowledgeable people there. I also want to mention about the Family History Library at the Library of Congress. They would like, if you publish, self-publish, it doesn't matter, a family history, they would like you to share a copy of it with them. They collect those.
Oh wow.
As long as nobody living is in the book.
That makes sense.
Good point.
Privacy burns us every time, doesn't it?
One other map that is the Anna map, which has the time periods for various for your counties. And that can be very useful in terms of you can put in 1825 and you can find out what are the boundaries of counties, say in Michigan. But that's been a good source, and that came through you all. That I followed up on. That Alexa suggested, and I thought it was very useful.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it takes you right to it.
Julie, do
Okay,
you
yeah,
know
I'll
where,
dig into those.
What was
Julie,
that
do you
called?
know-
Anna Maps?
ANI map, and it's only for the U.S., but you can get any time period at all. It's $40 a year, but you can put in any time for any area, and it will give you. You can go right down to the county and the cities at that particular year. The little trial is quite good.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
You're very welcome. I'll just check back, Joel, with you and see how things are going for you. I'll look into some shape files as well. But if you have any questions, again, yourself, feel free to share my contact information with the group. Julie, if you want some of your technology people to give me a call and ask questions, I'm happy to meet with them anytime you need it.
Oh, that'd be great. And you said, where's your contact information going to be?
Joel has it, but he can send out my phone number and my email.
Okay.
I'll send it out to the group.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect. Let me know what you need from me, and I'll check back with you guys if I don't hear from you with questions next, Joel.
Sounds good.
That was great.
Okay.
Thanks.
My pleasure. Any other questions for you guys from the group before I drop off?
Yes, I do have one.
Shoot.
Is it possible, for instance, if Alexis wanted to have a map just of her family that shows both the sending Norway parishes and the places that they went to, can she just pull that up and sort of do a cut and paste if she wanted to share that with her family?
We could do that, or whoever the admin is could create one for them. If we did just an Alexis view, for example, make sure. I think it was name that we had that. Yep, we could do a quick Alexis view of it. And it would just be a matter of whoever the admin is, we could build a quick map for that.
And then a second question is, in terms of internal migration within Norway, I think some of the immigrants that came much later were more apt to go to from farms to some of the cities before they left. Would that ever be useful or not? Or would you want people to bypass, for instance, if they had gone from some parish in Oakland and they went to Oslo, would you rather they provide just the original farm place rather than the intermediate city or something?
That would be a question for your group on what your group wants to focus on. If you wanted to have an individual ancestor name, so for example, if we were going to track Rudolph from his location here, if Alexis wanted to track him from here to Oslo and then to Ireland and then to Canada, all you would need was to be an entry for that individual's name that we could group it by, and then you could see, and then probably if they have it, the year that they moved from the farm to Oslo to Quebec to Minnesota in this example. If you had an entry for each location where they were and what year they were there, you could track down and segment or group them by individual ancestor name and look at where they translated from. They go from North Norway down to Oslo, and then over to Canada. You could track their whole movement lifestyle if you wanted to. That's entirely up to the group. I think, Joel, our initial discussion was where they left Norway from the ancestral farm, then to where they settled in the US. Was kind of our focus of our discussion, but you could absolutely track their movements along from Norway down to the US if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think we just decided that
too much complexity.
once they get to the United States and all the movement that people had, it gets complicated pretty fast, and so we just wanted a nice, simple,
right
picture. But yeah, no, I know that people would be interested in tracking the overall migration.
That would put a little bit of a burden, I would imagine, on whoever the admin is going to be to build those individual maps. But that's something that if they wanted to do it and a particular member wanted to map their progression through and then across and then around the US, you could easily build a data set of just their family and put together a map for them in a few minutes.
I have a question too. May I ask a question?
Of course.
Most of the ancestors had Norwegian names and they changed them in some way, the spelling or the form of the name, like Martinez became Martin, Martinson, it was Martinezson became Martinson, so on. Would we use the Norwegian name or the American name, or would there be a way of showing both?
You could absolutely show both if you wanted to within MapLine. Again, it's entirely up to what your group wants to do. But if their Norwegian surname is here, and then you wanted to have a column that told them what they changed it to, and maybe even the year they changed it, depending on how much data you have, you could pull into family name changed. Okay, it helps if I'm actually editing what I thought I was editing. Hold on a second. Family name changed to column, and you could have their original surname, and then it could be, hey, they suddenly became Smiths. And you could have that. you could add that and have both names to look at and compare to along the way. And then that'll be, in fact, if you're doing family history, that'll be a huge help if you know that they moved from into Iowa and then change your name from, Myklebust to Mickelson or something like that. You could have that and track that. That would help connect you with other family members after they change the name to where they expanded to. So yeah, you can absolutely track both of those using the data. Whatever you have here that you can add to this data, you can use that and click on that and see those details along anywhere else. So you could even take this group and look at, let's say, for example, I wanted to put a 100-mile radius around this location. We could pull that in, and let's do that. Who is that? That is the sewer. That's for Susan. So we could take Susan's group and expand that whole group around that and say, give me a 100-mile radius around that location. Let me see what other family members are there. We could put in a whole radius circle.
Wow.
That's cool.
And then click on a list and get a whole list of who else is around that particular area. In our case, we don't have one, but as way of an example, let me move them up here. And then you would be able to click on that and you could see a list of who else was in that particular area. So there's quite a bit you can get into with that information. So if you have extra information, you guys just have to decide how do you want to use it. And then you can decide what you want to do with it and how you want to visualize it. And if it's going to be on the group map, or if someone wants to get together and start creating individual family maps, again, you'll have to work out how that admin will be. I will tell you, if you're looking at additional licenses, they're typically $900 per user after the initial $1,800. And if you guys do want to get one or two, so you can have a couple of people helping with collaborating, I can see if I can get a break from you on the billing team for what that might look like. Maybe we do, instead of 1,800 for one, maybe I can get you 2 users at 2,400 for the year if you guys want to contribute a little bit more to get a second admin in there that can do it.
Okay.
I'm assuming that the admin can be reassigned.
Yes. Yep. You can manage your profile in the profile page. So if someone leaves the group or wants to hand it off, we can transfer it to a new user within the group if we need to.
In the Midwest, that we have a lot of groups called big log groups that are from a geography in Norway, and it could be equally applicable to those kinds of groups. They got together in America because they knew they all came from a certain area. And once a year they would have a big reunion kind of thing because they were friends and relatives in America, typically in the Midwest. So it would be interesting for that kind of group as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. You guys have given me some great resources to look at too. I'm excited to see what these look like.
Yeah, this has
Okay.
been really valuable. Thank you very much, Jared.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let me know what you need from me moving forward. And I'm happy to walk you through formatting some data and getting things so you can get the data ready to go. And then if you decide that the group wants to get this get our map line solution in place to work with it, I'll be happy to work with you and dedicate some time to helping you get things started and built out the way you need.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Perfect. All right, guys. Anything else? I'll let you guys. I'm sure you guys have other group business to discuss on this call, but thank you for giving me some of your time today and talking through what you're trying to do with your ancestry work. So this is exciting stuff.
That's fun. Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Looking forward to
Bye.
hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay.
Joe, can I make a comment?
Sure.
I looked at Roots Magic, and I didn't get that deep in it. I went ahead and bought the piece. I don't know how it would work for the whole group, but the reason I made the point of moving data was when I bought it and did what they told me to. I had the data moved in about 5 minutes, and it was everybody on my family tree from
Holy
families.
moly.
I mean, hundreds of people were immediately there, and I could group them. I could say, I just did a couple because I ran out of time. I did all the Borleys. All right. So we had all the Borleys, which is an odd group, but just because it was easy. And they mapped them all out. You can do it by events. It really, really was easy. And you can see that I'm not strong in this. I had no trouble at all working around. I don't know, and you guys are much more sophisticated than I am, how we could do it. That, for example, Alexis could put in some of her data and I could put some of mine. Maybe you could grab a pertinent piece and we could buy one for the group. It would be, but I think it's worth looking into. For the money, obviously, and two was being able to move everybody in, and that it was so easy to use. Anyway,
So Susan, what, your Borley people's location data, where did you have that? Was it in your ancestry data? Or how did you do that?
it was already, the only thing I have, okay, is I put stuff into Ancestry and Family Search seems to pull it over. Okay, so when it gives you a list, if you can import data from Legacy, from something called PDF5, from Roots Magic, and from Family Search. And so I plugged in Family Search, and all of a sudden, within a few
Okay.
minutes, everybody was there. It had every bit of data that was in there. It was their birth, death, all the things that go on that little, the little chart that you make in Ancestry.
Yeah.
All of it was there.
So you had connected your ancestry with Family Search, and so the Family Search data, such in our mind's eye, it had all the location information
Yes.
that you had previously put in Ancestry.
For the last 15 years.
Okay, and so then Roots Magic goes in somehow to Family Search and extracted that.
Yep.
Wow.
And so it was all there.
I don't think you can send information to Family Search. You might be able to get it off, but I think it's a one-way street.
I don't know, but I'll be real honest, Alan. I fill in Ancestry and I had clicked some things on Family Search and it's all landed over there. And now from Family Search, it landed over in Roots Magic.
Alan, I think you're right now because Family Search did something where they froze all the tree information and shifted it over to MyHeritage, where you have to pay to, I think.
Are we
that.
talking
No,
family
no.
tree DNA
No.
or Family Search?
Family
Family
Search.
tree DNA changed over to MyHeritage.
Correct.
It didn't have any, no, it was just Family Search.
Family Search has one great big tree. It has a lot of mistakes on it because people add things and they
Sure.
change things. So you can't always rely on it being accurate, but anybody can add on to the Family Search tree. It's one worldwide tree.
One person at a time. You can't take a file of your
Oh,
tree,
no, I agree. Yeah, you can't upload
which is where I'm trying to make that point is like you can't take your information from ancestry.com and plant it on Family Search. That doesn't work.
right.
You might be able to go the other way, I don't know. But you can't go towards Family Search. They won't take it.
I don't know how this was done.
But you took it from Family Search, right?
I took it I clicked the button that said Family Search. And when I clicked the button that Family Search, and back to 1500s,
So you're grabbing information from Family Search and bringing it in another direction. That I could see.
into Roots Magic.
But it was her data.
It was my data. It wasn't other people's data.
Yeah. So somehow she must
was
have
not the
early
genuine.
on connected Family Search to Ancestry. They must have some linkage.
And they had other places you could move the data from. Okay,
When you make a tree on ancestry.com, it creates a GEDCOM file. GEDCOM, right? And that's a file that you can download to your computer. You can send it to another site like MyHeritage, for example, but you cannot send it to Family Search.
but the Roots Magic lists as the GEDCOM as one of the places you can bring your move stuff in.
Into
It-
Roots Magic,
Into
not
Roots
out of.
Magic,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Outbound,
brilliant.
yeah.
I use Family Tree Maker. And Family Tree Maker, you can link to both Family Search and Ancestry.
Yep.
They have specific links between that software and those two. I don't do it. It causes too much trouble, get too many errors, so I don't do that, but you can, and people do it.
Didn't
Yeah,
a few
I do.
years back, we had somebody from Family Search give a presentation for us from, I don't remember her name. What I remember is asking the question because I don't want to build another tree. So I said, hey, can I take my ancestry tree and download it to Family Search? And the answer was absolutely not.
No,
You can build it one person at a time.
but if you have your family tree on a software like Family Tree Maker, you can do it. That's a direct link to the family tree, Family Search, or to Ancestry.
As like a backup. Yeah.
So if you have, it's just people like to, participate in those two. So they can, but that is a known link. Right now, they've been having some trouble, and there's supposedly a new version of Family Tree Maker. It's over a year in delay because of all the fighting in Ukraine and so forth. So
Yeah, we
Well,
have,
until next month, we'll get
but
this.
they're saying it's coming. They were doing some demos at the Roots Tech earlier this month. So hopefully it's going to come.
we have somebody from Family Tree Maker coming next month to talk to this group.
Oh, good. It's a good program. I've used it for many, many years.
I use it to back up what I have on Ancestry because I don't trust Ancestry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Well, at least Roots Family Tree Maker's on your own computer. That's
Yeah.
the safe
Yeah.
one.
So
But you have your own copy on your own computer.
like with most meetings with an agenda, we've done item 1 and not gotten past item 1, or actually in this case item 3. We haven't done 1 or 2. But let's just briefly. We have a couple of people who have agreed to help us with the program committee on this call. Rick Nelson, who it turns out has not only done all of the levels of cultural skills for genealogy, but has also been a mentor 3 times over. So hopefully in one of our upcoming meetings, we can get him to talk a little bit about that. We have Julie Christensen and Susan Connect, who have agreed to help us. And I don't know if either of you want to say something, or Rick want to say something about the kinds of things that you're interested in genealogy, which will help us identify meetings that we should be having over the next few months or longer, things that you think the whole group would be interested in.
Well, in my own case, well, I've been doing genealogy for probably around 60 years off and on. And, I've worked about 30% Norwegian. I also worked in English and German genealogy. But Norwegian has been my most interesting, my most rewarding, where I've gone back to family farms and stayed with them and met distant relatives and made some lifelong friends and generally enriched my life through this. But after having done it this long, I'm at the point where I'm not likely to be making any major new discoveries. So I'm at the point where I'm thinking, well, I've got all this information. What do I do with it now? My family just marginally interested. I mean, they'll look at what I've done, but I hate to have this all go away. And so I'd be interested in other people's thoughts and my own a little bit, I guess, on, okay, now what? And now what do we do with this?
Mhm.
Do we publish or, so that's sort of where I am. I'm open to any questions anybody might have, but that's,
Yeah,
I think that's where I am in my journey.
I'm in the same place that Rick is in. I've been doing it. I just turned 80, so a good 60 years. I started it when I was 19 or 20. And as I said, I do it in notebooks. So I have literally a closet wall with notebooks and wonder what's going to happen to it. Is how to tie up what I've done, and is any of it worth passing on? One of the things that I have done is trying to do sort of interesting small things for my granddaughter and for my great nieces, from making large photograph trees so that they look at something and seeing the families, to making shadow boxes with photographs and objects from the family, because nobody else is going to want a small purse, but maybe if it's framed with a picture of their grandmother and all that. So I've been trying to do that just to catch interest. And then, like Rick, I'm trying to start pulling it together as stories. And so I've gotten very interested in looking at Norwegian art that is now beyond copyright, and collecting art that I can use to illustrate earlier periods, along with collecting photographs of places they've been. So it's been a collection, and then how to put it in a form that may be useful for someone. And I think the idea, it is nice to hear that the Library of Congress might be interested in a family history. And I'm hoping, a lot of my family's involved with St. Olaf, so I've been involved up there, and I think some of my original photographs and stuff will go there.
And I think some places, the local history organizations, that many counties, maybe all counties in the United States, have a local history group, and they often will be glad to accept things and catalog them, and and make them available for research.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Last year, I guess it was, I did a little talk on the books that I've written on family history, including this one, my surname book. So you can look that up. But when a copy was given to the Grant County, Minnesota Historical Society by a friend who went out there she had written a book and was going on a book tour. So she took my book along and gave it to the Historical Society. And I've given another book to a historical society in Iowa on my Scottish great-grandfather's ancestors. And I did talk to people. I did research at the Library of Congress and talk to them about donating there. But of course, they don't want books that have living people in them. So I haven't revised my book yet to give to them, but I intend to. But I also have my family. My parents both grew up in Montana, so I've talked to people at Kalispell, Montana. I think I have about a list of about half a dozen at least places that are interested. I just have to. Some of them would even like a digital copy instead of a printed copy. So I just have to work out how to do it. But I think it's definitely worthwhile. There's real interest in North Dakota too, where my parents lived in Bismarck. I talked to the people there and in their archives, and they'd be interested because my parents lived in North Dakota for about 40 years, even though they were born elsewhere and grew up elsewhere. So they seem very interested in collecting this family information. So I think it's definitely worth doing.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Norwegian American Genealogy Center and Naismith Library in Madison.
Yeah, right.
Extensive
another one.
collection
Yeah.
of family histories.
I meant to mention that too. Yeah.
So do
And
they all have the same restriction about not having a book with living?
No, some of them will take books that have living people in them. So you just have to work with each one at a time, find out what they want and, what form to
I
put.
mean, I guess you could redact it. I mean, I did a book, it's about 200 pages. I did it about 40 years ago. And some of the people are still living and it's,
Yeah.
I think it was nicely done, but I'm sorry if you can't share it, I guess. Yeah.
I was wondering if any of you, I was trying to remember the name of the man in Sons of Norway who was starting a project on collecting these ancestors' information in a form he gave me, and I filled it out. I'm going to hold it up, see if it looks familiar to you. A page that has a picture of ourselves and then information about our ancestors in a certain form that he gave me. What's his name, Bert?
And
Bert
what county,
Kosky, yeah.
what,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
what province or,
And, I don't know whether somebody has the material he collected, but, that's another thing that we could do locally is just put together a folder of this kind of information for each other.
That was the Roots project, which I think went away with Bert. I haven't been able to find that notebook that.
Oh, okay.
But that is along the lines that I think we're talking about with this mapping project.
Yeah,
Part of the idea there was to put a pin in the map of Norway where your ancestors came from.
right.
Uh, uh, and we haven't quite made the step of, if you give us your information about where they came from in Norway, you also have to give us those 2 pages about who it was that emigrated. And we can put that maybe online this time so that there's a link from
Yeah.
in Norway to the story that you tell, which I think would be useful. It's one step toward what we've all been talking about, which is, how can we pass on this information so that we can say, okay, your great grandfather came from this place in Norway, and here's a story about him, and he landed in Clinton, Iowa, and here's a story about that, that kind of.
Yeah, and that's what Bert asked me to give him also, a one-page summary that listed where they came from in Norway, where they, a short paragraph about where they came in this country, and then add onto that if we had additional stories. So I did that because my aunt had collected stories from her aunt, which gave a lot of detail about their emigration and their life in Minnesota.
If I, maybe to close the loop on one other part of our plan for this meeting, was to try to encourage people to do the genealogy cultural skills pins. But those stories that you're talking about work for one piece of the cultural skills pin. One of the things you have to do is write a story, and that story about who emigrated and where how they got here and that kind of stuff works for that piece. And that's, I mean, we had a speaker a couple of years ago talking about writing the family story, and the best advice she gave was just start doing it. Just start, and then it all work. And you've done it, so that's a.
I think sometimes it's hard to stop.
Yeah, no. But.
Once you get into it, I was going to mention something was, I think it was Susan that mentioned that it's hard to get the younger people interested. And I unfortunately have no grandchildren. I think that's horrible for a genealogist, but I don't. So I had a niece who was very interested, and unfortunately she died very young. So at this point, I was trying to figure out how can I get these younger people interested, like my son and, the people in their 30s and 40s. And yeah, I don't think I was interested when I was in my 30s or 40s. So I came up with this idea the other day that I haven't really developed very much, but to create a trivia game.
there is one.
Or questions like, well, which of your ancestors homesteaded in Dakota Territory? And they're probably like, I had an ancestor who homesteaded. That's nobody ever told me that growing up. I had to discover that after I was doing genealogy. So anyway, that's an idea of maybe a way to get younger people interested.
That's
Well,
fun.
the other key is to wait until they're 65 and then they get in.
Exactly.
The only trouble, that was me, and the only trouble with that was that I had no way to go back to my dad or my grandfather.
That's the problem.
Those important questions.
Absolutely. I didn't want to try to do my Scandinavians. I thought, how can I do this? Everybody's son, 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 or son or son. And, so I said to my mother, Mom, you're still alive. I think I should try to go back and research your Lindgrens in Sweden. And the first thing she said that, I've never been told in decades, oh, their name wasn't Lindgren when they left Sweden. But she didn't know for sure what it was. So, it is helpful to ask the living people if you can.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to share my situation. So I've done the ancestry tree, and it's pretty big, and I felt like I've done some pretty good due diligence for my family. I don't have kids, so I don't have any grandkids either. And I've come to decide that there's hardly any interest throughout the family in the things that I've done. They know I've done it, but they never ask me any questions or anything about it. So now photographs are starting to become available and nobody wants them. Large photographs from the late 1800s and early 1900s. I
Yeah.
don't even have, even if I took them, I have no one to give them to. It'd be a temporary situation. And I don't have the wall space for them, frankly, but I don't want to see them getting sold to a restaurant as decor, and I don't want them hit the dumpster. So I contacted NAHA, Norwegian American Historical Association, which is housed in St. Olaf College in Minnesota, because they do archive things, and I've been there, and I now have some experience with those people, and they will take that stuff. So I intend to, even though writing a book about my family is like standing with my toes hanging over an abyss. I don't really cherish that thought. And but these pictures, I don't want them to disappear. So I'm willing to go to some effort here to get a hold of them from people, even if I have to drive around the country to pick them up and carefully bring them back to Minnesota where I live and get them there. And I can tell those folks exactly who those pictures are. And I could even estimate if the date's not on them, when they were taken and where they were taken, that kind of thing. And I can reference, I don't know, myself as a contributor, and that I have that information in the future, should anybody, like I could say the name of my tree on Ancestry is this. And if Ancestry exists in 50 years from now, they could put two and two together. But in the meantime, authors, people like Odd Lovell, who write books about Norwegian Americans, they can reference this stuff. This stuff is available not just to my family. If they do get interested, they'll know where to find it. And just writers in general can go and look through this stuff. It'll be cataloged and cross-referenced in different ways. Say Webster County, Iowa. It could be a cross-reference, or Olson, for whatever good that is. I mean, but you know what I mean? In different ways, it could be cross-referenced, and then people could, somebody might.
Yeah.
Families or something, I don't know. But Naha, I think, is where these large photographs are going to go. I made a container and I just shipped it off recently for family to store some things safely flat in.
Well,
And it might be worth your while. Also, another thing is, as far as county, contributing to counties or Madison or Naha or Congress, Library of Congress, it kind of has to do with funding. Counties are kind of disjointed, and your family might not know to go looking in that county for the stuff that you contribute, but they might know NAHA or UW, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why NAHA is higher up on my list than, say, Webster County, because I know that county museum is like, I feel like I might be just throwing it away. you know, going to that county. But NAHA's going to be around. They're well funded. They have a vault. They have a climate controlled vault,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's something to that's something to think about when you're throwing away, especially originals like photographs. It's one thing if you've printed off a couple dozen of your books, you've been brave enough, you know, braver than me, and you've written that book. Well, great, spread the seeds around. But if you only have one set of original photographs, be careful about where you're putting them.
Yeah. One of the things that was just occurring to me, one of our cousins, Tona Hella, is in touch with people in the area that our families came from, and my guess is that this is probably true across Norway, but there's a group that are getting interested in where did our people go? You know, if you look at Norwegian records, it'll say till America. They're gone. Go to America. And our next kid has to be named after that person because we got to have somebody with that name in the family. But but they're getting interested in where did some of these people go, you know, and we have a lot of that information, you know, so if there's some way to make that connection, then it's another it's another place where people are interested in this kind of information and trying to put it together.
She
I
brought up
actually found out when I was doing my research more than 20 years ago now, but I contacted a genealogist in Norway where one of my grandfathers came from, north of the Arctic Circle. And when I told her I was trying to find out information about my grandfather and his parents, he died before I was born. But she wrote back to me and she said, oh, yes, he went to America and he married Louisa Bryson. That was my grandmother. And she already had that information from America.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to be really following the immigrants.
Julie, this is Donna. I sent you a chat message.
Okay. So a chat on
I'm pretty
my
sure
phone,
Julie's
a
a
chat
cousin
on my
of mine.
phone, right?
What's that?
You sent me a chat on my phone?
No, just on the chat here and
Oh, chat here. Okay.
chat here. Yeah.
Okay.
It should pop up.
Yeah, I see it right there.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
pretty
Yeah.
sure Julie's my cousin.
I tell you, you know, I was a professor for 30 years at George Mason but you know, I retired in 2019 just in time to avoid having to teach all this online stuff. And so I'm a total idiot. But anyway, thank you for putting up with me.
Well, I live in Maryland, so
Yeah,
we could probably meet up.
I'm in Fairfax. you
Yeah,
know,
we can meet up.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So that'd be fun. Yeah, exactly. I'm very near. I can walk to the club, you know, Sons of Norway.
Oh,
I live in that neighborhood right near there, near across, you know, so
cool.
anyway.
I'm going to make a comment about stories. I'm getting pretty arthritic, so trying to type is a challenge. And I was chatting with somebody about that issue, and their comment and suggestion was that I try Word Note. I think that's the application. And I can use on my phone, I can just sort of dictate into that. And then, you know, then I can cut it and paste it into Word and, you know, clean up the ahs and hems and haws and stuff like that, reorganize it. But that really is a help for me just to get some of the stuff down. And, you know, sometimes you got the story going through your head and you're not close to your laptop or whatever.
Yeah.
You can use it. You can record your emails. You can record notes, you know, almost anything, at least on the smartphone. You can hit the little icon for the microphone and just talk. And it's amazing. At the beginning, it might not quite understand your voice, but give it a little bit of practice and I have to say, compared to 20 years ago, the use of text, a voice to text, is just amazing in today's world. I can speak Swedish to this phone and it understands me. Probably nobody else would, but the phone does it.
Well, thank you, Joel. This is really useful to hear.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, well, I mean, Susan, you've been helpful in looking at some of the mapping alternatives. So, and we'll continue to try to do that.
I'd love to have somebody else look at the roots magic. I really think, and I didn't even do the family atlas part. It is, if it could be used for the group, it's very user friendly.
So, I mean, the free version of Mapline, it does a fair amount, and we might want to start out with that and just kind of explore, see what we can do. But $1,800 a year is pretty steep. That would it would take some convincing to convince the lodge to do it. I'm not sure how else we would do it. But there are other choices around, and so we'll try to continue to look at these alternatives, and maybe if some of you don't mind, we can send you links to some of them, and you can kind of play with them and try different things, and we may be able to do something to pursue this a little bit further.
But again, but it's $1,800 from the group, right? With an administrator.
Yeah.
So you get 1,800, you get 18 people, it'd be $100 a piece, right?
Yeah, that's true.
There
But
are probably 18 people out there who could pay $100.
But that's
if we
per year.
reach- You went per year, right?
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's right. I mean, if we share it, we could.
Yeah, if the group is larger, reaches out, further. I mean, I think that, in my case, if I don't know, I mean, we're very worried about my Uncle Jerry because, he's pretty old, but there might, through him, there might be some other people that I know that would link up so that maybe the links would go this way out towards some of the, people not from here, but the people in those areas that we're kind of researching.
Yeah.
There's also, does Find a Grave ever help anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've gone through that. I mean, a lot, like in Iowa, Spencer.
Has anyone ever used Disbit in?
Use what?
Has anyone ever used Disbit or whatever it's called, DIS in Norway? It was created in Sweden originally, then it was a Norwegian helped put it online, and so supposedly it's available in Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. I use it in Sweden all the time. People submit their trees to this program, and the program will match up all the people that you have in your tree that are the same as the people in somebody else's tree. So you have to be willing to make your name and address and phone number public to participate, at least in the Swedish one. But it is amazing.
The Norwegian one changed its name to Slekt og Data.
I've seen that.
They don't have the tree function, I don't think. I mean, I'm a member, but it does have. They have a pretty good database of graves in Norway, so you can, if you have an idea of about where your ancestor would have been buried, the chances are pretty good. And I think they're expanding it all the time with people going out and taking pictures of gravestones and that kind of stuff.
The problem with Norway and Denmark for sure is if you don't pay a subscription, your grave is going to go away, and so it could be, it's only of a limited time frame that it's going to be of any value to you.
Right.
Well, I mean, I've got some that go back pretty far, so I don't know.
Well, I'm
Someone
sure
probably paid for permanent care, because otherwise, like it's the same thing in Sweden. Well, it will only last a certain number of years unless somebody pays again. But I have relatives in Denmark that, you know, it's a very, very old, but the man at the church there said this grave will stay because first of all, it looked like they had a lot of room and it was a small parish. And secondly, this guy was a veterinarian, so he would have had a higher status somehow. But that was kind of fun to find one, but that's the only one we could find, except for recent deaths in Sweden.
I'm pretty sure that I was told in Denmark and Norway that you get 100 years, and then if you're not paying they just reuse it. And around the graveyard, around the cemetery, which is usually around the church, well, in this case, there's a stone wall around it, around the old part of it, and old headstones are just leaning against the wall around the perimeter.
A few, yeah.
Yeah, same in Sweden. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
That's happening in the United States too, some places.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Because they're too crowded, do you think?
No, just because if somebody isn't watching over them, I mean, I think they try to watch over them. I mean, like in Spencer, for instance, they're really great. I mean, we have a white marble that isn't polished, and oh my God, it's just, you had to clean it every week when I was little, but now it's clean. They're taking care of it. But the ones that are on the edge, and then they get old. That's the thing. Though some of those stones were pretty small to start out with.
Yeah, we have a stone that was really kind of wobbly, and another one that was sort of overgrown with stuff. But we brought a man in to recreate the deer cup stone because it needed to be the lettering was eroding so that from the stone. So he had to deepen the lettering so it could be read, and then he put a covering on it and everything. But he taught us how to deal with the other smaller stones. So we were able to fix those, that one needed a new cap on the top and that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But you're right. It takes a lot.
It takes a lot of work. Ironically, my husband, who passed away recently, he was from Georgia, Republic of Georgia, Tbilisi. Everybody there goes to the cemetery every week. And, they all have benches and they all sit there and, they drink their wine and pour the wine on. You have to make sure that they get some Georgian wine on all of those graves, and homemade. The cemetery is so much a part of their life. But, that whole city's going to be one big cemetery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joel, back to MapLine, do you know if your map goes away if you quit paying your subscription?
It sounded like I don't know. You may just lose the login privilege,
But isn't the free one?
It starts out at the first level is free.
Yeah.
And there's a limitation on the number of people, the number of pins you can put into these maps, and they don't give you they give you some minimal political boundaries. I think you get countries, probably not counties, that kind of thing.
The reason I ask is say I pick my grandparents as the body of a butterfly family tree. So it gets bigger in the backward direction, it gets bigger in the forward direction, right? And say I build that. So there's quite a few people in both directions, mostly older. And then I quit paying for it. Can I tell my greater living family, if you want to see our family tree, here's the link, and we all have free readable access to that, and then I quit paying for it, say, after 1 year, and it doesn't go away.
Well, can't you save your Google Sheet or your Excel spreadsheet as a database and then you're ready to pay it again, repopulate it?
I would imagine. I was just thinking, I'm not going to live forever. If I do a one-time shot and I know it's electronically going to be there for a few decades, I don't know. At least because these young people in my family anyway, they don't seem to care about anything that's physical. So a book of a poster, a picture, they don't seem to want it. But if they could look it up, well, it's better than nothing, I guess.
I would guess that, there's some way to download the image somehow. So, you at least have, the location of all the people and then you could put that on a disk or memory stick or something. I mean, people could look at it. I don't know.
I was hoping that it would be kind of interactive, like a cousin's kid said, "Hey, I'm going to Norway for a vacation. Me and the wife. Where should I go so I can see so and so?" And if they could just look it up themselves, kind of an interactive map by blow up an area, then they're on their own. They don't need me if I tell them where to find this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, those, I guess, those are questions we can put to Jared and see what. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to entertain some idea where we can have some kind of shared cost model, or looking at some of the other alternatives, some of the ones that are less expensive, and see if we can get the functionality that we want from some of those. So it's going to take a little bit. A little more exploration, I think, to figure this out.
Does anybody on this right now, anybody here belong to a Bigdalog?
A log, not a big log, yeah.
Well,
I'm a
that's
member
just
of a
what
couple.
The Hodland one.
I was
Londing
just thinking,
blog.
Julie, for the sake of Julie, it's another way for you to find your ancestry. The Bigdalogs each one has their own library. And in those libraries are going to have Bigda books that are centered around that location in Norway, if you know where you're going. And somebody is in charge of that library per log, and that somebody usually knows how to use those books, and you can just email them and say, "Hey, I'm looking for so-and-so, can you help me?"
Can you put that in the notes here so I can find that?
Well, do you know where in Norway your people came from?
I don't exactly remember, but my Uncle Jerry does.
Because
Know some.
that's
I mean, he knows some. I know more Denmark, frankly, from my grandmother who was always talking, but in Norway, but I'm 3/4 Norway. I'm much more Norwegian than Danish, but yeah, but my Uncle Jerry does know. He has a list, and I've just got to call him. I mean, I can't remember right now. It's been a while. So we
with
can go to that. I think we know
with that
now.
information, then you can find the appropriate Bigdalog.
How does that? Victalog, how do you spell that?
Bygdelag. That's a generic term for all of them.
Uh-huh.
They're how do I say this? A log, LAG, is a unit. So
Uh-huh.
you might have a Voss log, you might have a Hardanger log, you might have there are a whole bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go, I'm trying to think of the website. Write this down, Fellisrud. FELLESRAAD. Fellisrud.
Belsrod.
Dot, I think it's com, or it could be org, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But that's the umbrella group for all of the logs. They're typically in the Midwest.
Uh-huh.
And it's a way to find, if you go to that website and you know where in Norway you came from, then you'll find a log in there. And each log will probably have their officers listed there and email addresses. And there's bound to be a librarian for each one.
Mm-hmm.
And that librarian can help you when you find the right log.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's good to know.
Thank
Alan, are they interested in our own family histories and for their libraries?
I would think so.
Hadn't thought of it.
Each one of them has a genealogist as well, so they do collect that.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's useful to know.
When you go to one of these big log meetings in the summertime, I belong to, I don't know, 5 or 6 but there's whoever the librarian, oftentimes / genealogist, same person a lot of time. These aren't very big outfits. They bring totes in and set them up. And then whoever signs up for the weekend can start digging through the books physically if you want to, or family histories, if that's what, whatever it is they have, they'll throw it out on a table. And that's one of the reasons why you go.
Oh.
They also have presentations if you don't want to do that to keep you occupied, and in the evening they'll have some musical entertainment or whatever. But you kind of need to know where in Norway you came from so you get into
Yeah.
the right log.
I have that information. Oh. But are these meetings in just like in the major cities, or are there?
Now they move around. Nobody has a home or a building.
Oh.
They kind of throw a dart at the map. Be, they're usually like, I don't know, I hate to say this, but if you like took a pin and put it in Rochester, Minnesota, and you made a circle 150 miles around there, they're probably all in there somewhere.
Yeah, Wisconsin as well.
Yeah.
Like I'll be going there. Phyllis Root is having a meeting in May. That's in Minneapolis. Vesland's Log is having theirs in Austin, Minnesota in June. Sognefjord Log is it's in Minnesota. But every summer it's a different place. They just kind of bop around and they try to get tours of anything interesting, especially if it has to do with Norwegian American history.
Mm-hmm.
Or music, or whatever they can find. But I mean, these things have been going on for over 100 years.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for that. Lots to think about, lots to do, lots to learn. Yeah. Sorry I didn't start this when I was younger. I know too much about too many other cultures, not enough about my own.
Well, this has been a really good meeting. I appreciate all of the input, all of the discussion. I will send a link for the recording, so if you wanted to.
Great.
And I'll send the contact information for Jared. And I'll probably send a list of some of the other mapping alternatives, just so we can all kind of get an idea of what's available and what we can do with it. And we'll try to go from there.
And people can save the chat by clicking on the three little dots at the top of the chat window.
Okay, that's good information. So I'll pause here for a minute so everybody can save the chat if they want to.
Where are the three little dots? You mean the view thing?
At the very top,
Yeah.
where it says GIG March.
If you click on chat, then it opens up another box, probably on the right side.
And then go to the top.
way up in the upper right corner.
Three little dots.
Sign in recording. Okay. I don't know.
So can we attach, like a document to this to share with each other? I mean, how does that work?
Saul. Come here. Do you know how to record this thing right there? They said it's up at the top, three dots on the top. This meeting is being recorded.
No, you want to click on the chat at the bottom of the window.
Yeah.
Click on chat.
Okay.
And then go, and then it.
Okay, there I
top,
see. Save
okay.
chat. Okay, I got it.
Great. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
There's
You're welcome.
that website's in there, Julie, that
Yeah.
Phyllis Rad website.
Uh-huh.
Go, it's not very glitzy, so you got to poke around in there, but that's where you're going to find stuff about logs and their resources, their libraries and their people.
Okay, great. And you put that in the chat too.
Yeah, I see it in there, phyllisrod.com.
Okay, great. Great. That's fantastic.
They're live links. You click on them and it takes you right there. I
That's
just did it.
super. Great. I see it there.
Yes.
Hadeland was, actually, I think that some of my people were actually from maybe Hadeland because then when they came in, they thought they were Hollanders. They thought they were, yeah, because they didn't understand Hadeland, you know, they thought it was Holland. And so that may very well be close to where we're looking.
You know, Highland has a search function. And
Oh,
you
yeah?
can just put it, you could just put in, you know, some of the names.
Yeah.
Now, you may or may not be able to drill down and get much more information about it. Unless you're a member, but you certainly can give it a try. And you can also contact the genealogist and they might be willing to give you some direction.
Uh-huh. Oh, great.
Joel, how many big books reside at the library in Fairfax?
There's a few. There's not a lot. One of the things that we've talked about and used to have was a list of the bigger books that our members own, and that you know, can contact a member and say, "Would you look somebody up for me?" But we've never really kept that up to date. We've talked about trying to do that, but you know, if people are interested, you know, we can pursue that a little bit more.
I guess what I'm saying, Julie, is look, you got to find out where he came from and then look for big books because they're kind of like the gold, the treasure, and there are different avenues to find those.
Start with your
Okay.
obituaries, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Donna, you're muted.
Did people have to live on farms to be in the Big books?
Usually it's a rural parish,
Yeah.
not a city.
Yeah, it's usually the
There are probably
history.
Well,
directories.
the people my husband's family, they were down in the southeast and they were in the shipping and boat building and dock building profession.
Probably not.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But there might be county histories of those. I mean, because that was a very important industry.
Oh, good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there might be other sources like that.
Usually it's because somebody took it upon themselves to get their hands on a church pick a parish because it has something to do with their own family. They pick that parish, they get their hands on the church books of all time, and they actually go through those books and translate the whole shebang, and they end up writing. It's a big effort, and not every parish gets written about. But if you're lucky enough to come from a parish that somebody did that, it's like gold.
Yeah, I think in some cases, I think they put out a call to the area and said, you know, give us the history of your farm, and they build them up piece by piece from what they can get from other people. But yeah,
There's a woman here in Minnesota that I just became friends with. She was the former treasurer, and she's helping me become the treasurer. And she wrote a big book starting back in the 60s when she was a single mother of 3 daughters. She would go to the LDS church in Minneapolis and get microfilm from Salt Lake City and study it and write in her notebooks by hand. And then she would do this every week. And eventually she wrote out the whole history of the parish where her family came from. And when she got all done, she took on another one and then another one. She'd been doing that for decades. And she had most of that time, she'd never even been to Norway. She can't even read a Norwegian book, right? But she could figure out the church books. And, you know, I'm sure she has stacks of notebooks that are, you know, feet high, but she just took it upon herself. And that's how they get written. Somebody just takes it upon themselves to translate a set of books for a church.
Wow.
And you don't have to be Norwegian.
Uh-huh.
Okay. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark.
Well, those have been a good one, Joel.
Yeah, it's great, great discussion. I really appreciate it. Always learn something.
Thank you very
all.
much.
Yeah, thank you all. I learned a lot. Well, I haven't
Oh,
learned
what-
it yet.
One of
Heard a
the
lot.
things that I share with all of you is I have no grandchildren and no cousins enjoy the stories when I tell them, but nobody wants to pursue it. But one of the things I have tried to do is make a little 2-4-page pages of Word documents, a combination of pictures and a story or something like that, send it out, hoping at least a few stories last. Or, maybe it'll stick with one of them. But hoping that somehow that combination, and I'm trying to shift more to using pictures and then a little bit about the picture, if that makes any sense, or who's in the picture, whatever, but.
Yeah, that's important. I've got a lot of pictures and I can't figure out who they are.
What I'd like to do, Joel, is I've got a bunch of things that I've tried to do, and I'll send it, to you to look at it. It's a way of, again, they're all experiments of how do I get somebody else engaged.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll send it to you. I've got your address, so.
I mean, if you don't mind, I can share that with the group.
Sure, I don't mind, if it's shared with, the group. I have no, that would be good.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Well, one time I got a picture from Tona of because her mom lives not even 2 miles from where my second great grandfather was born. After I told her where he came from, when she was in that area, she took a picture through the windshield of a car of the farm, up, kind of up the hill straight. The road curved a little bit away, but right straight through the windshield up the hill was the farm. And she took a picture for me, and I recognized it because it was exactly the same farm I visited in the 90s, and it's the same farm that was on the chapter in the Big book where I first learned about it, right? So I knew without her telling me what that farm was. So I took that picture and I sent it out to all my cousins and their kids and aunts and uncles, everybody that was related to my grandparents, and said, that farm right in the middle of the picture with the hayfield downhill from it is where so-and-so was born and raised. And he was born in this year, and he had his communion at the church in this parish, etc. And when he was about this age, he moved to Bergen, and he met, great grandma, whatever. And she came from a different area, but this is where they were from, and this is what it looks like in Norway, in that area. And it was just a 1-page email, and I got a lot of good feedback from it. Certainly nobody was stampeding to get me to write a book or anything, but a lot of people really enjoyed that one little snapshot thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like we're in a culture in which everybody wants little bite size of whatever.
Yeah.
I once, with my sister's help, went back to Spencer, and we had set up to have a family reunion of anyone in the 50-mile radius that we knew was somehow related to us. Second cousins we never met, et cetera, children of grandchildren, and so forth. And we were shocked. I mean, certainly not everybody showed up, but the people who did, we wouldn't have even known that they would be at all interested. So it worked out very well. And we had some food, and we had some materials to share with them, and we did a slideshow. And it was simple, very low cost, and it was quite effective, I think.
Mhm, 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 mhm. Good place to get stories.
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. These distant cousins that you really never met, but you have ancestors in common, they will say, "Oh yeah, my dad did such and such and such." Well, that dad was my dad's first cousin, so you
Yeah,
start building this whole story about what
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been great. I need to leave now, but
Yeah,
hope you all have a great week.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been good,
It's been
thank you.
very interesting. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all. Hope to see you again
Okay.
in the near future. Be great. Thank you for organizing.
Well, thank you for coming.